the attention gets caught up in things, and the attention can get caught up in quite subtle things, or it can get caught up with quite solid, gross material things. And I suppose the argument here is the more it gets caught up in material things, the further it is from its real nature. Its real nature. Even as a mountain is reflected in a mirror and is seen as if it were in the mirror, the jiva reflects the external objects and activities, and soon begins to think that they are all within itself, and that he is the doer of the actions and the experiencer of the experiences. Well, even as a mountain is reflected in a mirror, the jiva reflects the external objects and activities. We've moved even further away from how things are than is being described here. We don't experience things within ourselves like this. It's saying that basically we're like a mirror, reflecting everything that's going on round about us. Because that's how, otherwise how do we experience things? We see, we hear, everything is coming to us at this point where we are, and we're forming impressions of it. We're forming impressions of all the external things and activities. And with the Yoga Vasistha, it stops there. I mean, this may be how it was with the ancient people. They didn't have the benefits of, that's in quote marks, benefits of scientific education. They didn't have it reinforced in them that there's a material world out there which we are somehow separate from. They had this sense of everything reflecting in them right now. And their response would, according to this, would be that's what makes them take responsibility for it. So that's what gives them the illusion that they're the doer and they're an experiencer and they're experiencing objects and activities. I think for us it's a bit more different though. We've definitely got this very clear separation of experiencer, of doer, and an experiencer who's operating with the external world. So the end result's the same. I think but the way we get there is quite different. Yeah, there's a lot I could say about this notion that we're actually scientific. Think of ourselves as scientific. Science is actually quite spiritual, in that the roots of science are to do with trying to understand what's real. And as a side effect of science, we've got technology, which works. It kind of validates science. Now, the original scientific premise is one of alienation. It's one of a sense of separateness from the world. It's a sense of there's a world out there which I, as a scientist, am going to examine. And there's an automatic exclusion in that assumption. There's an automatic exclusion of oneself. And science has followed this approach and ultimately found it to be redundant. And yet it is this mentality that most of us still follow. We still follow the original scientific assumption of alienation. alienation from our environment. And this again is what gives rise to an individual self, which is somehow separate from the world in which it finds itself. It's an assumption. There's nothing realistic about it. And it's an assumption that needs to be challenged and dismantled. We filter the world. This is how we experience the world. We experience the world in an alienated way because of an outmoded scientific assumption. It's not even scientific in the sense that science never actively promoted it, but we've taken it all on board in the assumption that we're somehow being realistic and hard-nosed. We're not, we're just being short-sighted or blinkered and a little bit silly. The assumption of alienation from the world, of separateness, is only that, it's an assumption. And I think we can summarise that sense of separateness in the idea of a jiva.